Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Good Bit podcast. It is absolutely lovely to have you with us. We're here for another autumnal horror scary film, continuing on the theme here in October 2023. That's a joke, of course, if you've seen the title of this week's episode. This week's film is the lovely Little Miss Sunshine, a very wholesome film for, this scary movie season, this Halloween season of 2023's October Scary Month. I'm actually recording this on Friday the 13th, as this is going to go out on the 15th, so very scary day. Joining me this week, ladies and gents, is one of my favourite people. It is actress, theatre maker, recently taken over a theatre school as well, Becca Dunn. Brilliant Becca is here on the podcast for the first time ever. Usually this is weird actually, because usually we chat about film and theatre all the time in our real lives as we work together, but it's nice to see. I've not seen you in ages. You've become one of those people that is really difficult to get a hold of these days. Becca, we're finally doing it. You're finally on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. I really enjoy that we turned up in matching. I mean, obviously this is audio, but we're both wearing blue, little Mentors blue.
Yes. For context, this is me and Becca work together, and we decided to wear our uniform to record tonight.
Pretty much. We're not actually, but we're wearing stuff exactly the same colour, which is like, yeah, I'm good. It's been a really hectic term. I hate that I'm becoming someone that is hard to get hold of. So I'm going to try and change that with some better time management. But it's a busy time. I'm spinning lots of plates, but they are all good. They are all good creative plates. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
That is the most important thing. Are you enjoying it? Is it something you're passionate about? And you definitely have always struck me as someone that's really loves to be creative and kind of, I don't know if you prefer to be busy, but you always seem like you've got stuff going on, and that's kind of probably where you thrive.
I feel like I probably prefer to be on holiday, but it's not happened for a while. Yeah, it is all stuff that I really love. It's interesting because a lot of it's quite new. So I've just recently taken over a theatre school. So I really love working with the kids and teaching them and writing for them, or like helping them with devising stuff. I love all of that. And then teaching adults as well at the RCS. I just really like working with people. So I mean, That's the same as our job, really, isn't it? So all the jobs where I get to meet people and kind of bounce off of them creatively is really great. But I think the admin side of stuff is the bit that is taking longer for me to get my head around because I've never done it before. So I just am realizing it's taken more time in my week. It's gradually speeding up, but it is gradual. Yeah.
I can imagine, like, when you think, okay, I'm going to start this theatre school, I'm going to do all the admin stuff. You think, I could do that. But I reckon when you get started, you go, well, there's so much more than I was expecting. When I was a member of Bridges, the actors agency, I had a previous, last week's guest, Kelly Davey, is someone that I used to work with at Bridges. You know Kelly?
I love Kelly. She's great.
Yeah, great, a great person. But yeah, so we were talking about it, and I was like, do you know what? Like the thing I didn't like the most about the whole co-op agency was the admin side. I loved the people, and I loved the fact that you had the community, as you say, like working and bouncing ideas off people. But the admin stuff, whereas the pressure comes in and you're kind of out your depth a little bit.
It's hard. And I've had to, I've been like on the YouTube watching Excel spreadsheet videos to like be keeping my books, and it is definitely getting easier. Like I'm quite looking forward to, like, from January onwards, I feel like I'm gonna have like made my choices about how I'm approaching it. But it's been I took it over in February, so it's actually still really early on because the summer break was so long. So honestly, most of it's printing. I have to print so many scripts now. It
just takes up so much time.
Me and my stapler in the corner being like, come on. Yeah.
You could write a scene from that, just women with stapler. Yeah.
I thought it for my next show for the job.
There you go. That's going to go in the show reel. Homemade.
Yeah, exactly. Office mayhem.
I was trying to think of a pun, but I can't think of anything. Well, you know who's in the office? Steve Carell, who's in this film. Nah.
Seamless segue. No. Seamless. Beautiful work. Yeah.
No. All right. So you've taken over a theatre school, adding to the whole busy schedule that you live. You're also doing Gone Yourself. What's this? Is this a new kind of passion project with some friends?
Yes. I should definitely plug this here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Gone Yourself, we've been doing trial workshops for the last 3 months, and our official launch is in November, and we run like affordable, accessible workshops for professional actors to just come and do some scenes work, maybe some monologue work. We have occasional director-led sessions just for people to come and kind of like use their creative muscles and keep creatively fit. But it's very much like, it's very low stakes, it's very casual, it's very much like come and play and remember that you are like a valued creative person and performer, whether however long it's been since you last worked or however you feel in auditions. Because like I, for one, there's like not much work at the moment and it feels pretty heavy. And then when stuff does come along, the pressure's so massive because there's been like no, like, you know, it's not a solo sport. Like you can't really practice on your own. And I just feel that there's kind of lacking somewhere to keep the joy going and for us to all be like supporting each other rather than competing. So me, Morgan Woods and Kat McLeod have set that up together and we're trying to get that off the ground. So give us a little follow if you want and come along. It'd be nice to come for a session and play. Yeah. And
what are the socials? How can, I'm going to put you on the spot now, go find the Twitter and Instagram, or sorry, the X and Instagram accounts.
X. Do you know what? I'm basically not on it in rebellion at this point, but our Instagram is at Gone Yourself Workshop. So give us a little look on there.
A little follow. Yeah, I will do. That sounds great. Will your partners, would they be up for coming on the podcast? I feel like that's something we could organise. Yeah.
Yes, very, very much so. And oh yeah, that'd be really great actually to get them on. Yeah, I'll put them in touch with you. Yeah, that'd be fun.
The three of you could come on. We could do like a kind of a big chat. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so fun. Maybe like after, so because we're launching in November, maybe like after that we could have a little podcast together.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We'll book it now, so make sure you're free.
Yeah, I was going to say, put me down for next. No, I joke.
Who would have a 2024 relaunch of Becca Dunn?
Don't, it's not even funny. It's awful.
No, it's good to be busy. I'm really glad you're busy and you're staying active and staying creative because I've not seen you in so long, and hopefully I'll see you. But we're going to do this in person, but we just couldn't sort it out. I'm busy too, you know. So it's like it's good to we have the ability to do it remotely, and we can still catch up with this. But I do owe you a coffee, so we'll do that at some point. In terms of films and that sort of thing, what have you been watching? Anything on TV recently? Have you had time to kind of check out some movies or TV shows, that sort of thing?
Right. Well, okay. This is quite a rogue answer for me. So I've been like, so I love Succession. Still haven't watched last season.
Okay, I'm on season 3. I was hopefully you weren't going to say something.
Yes. So I've got to end of season 3 because I'm waiting because my partner's catching up. So we've only just started. I'm rewatching all of it with him. And the trade-off was I watched all of Andor with him.
Okay.
And, oh my gosh, no, it's amazing. I was so into it.
Many Scottish actors. Oh my god, and Andor. And even so, I got a bit jealous. You know what I mean? I was like, God.
Yeah, I feel you.
You know?
But yeah, just what an incredible cast. Like just that moment that Andy Serkis popped up and I was like, oh, come on. And Fiona Shaw and all these people. And I found myself I was really surprised by how much I got into it. So I finished that a couple of days ago. So really enjoyed that. What else? Honestly, I've been not keeping up with the films as much as I should have been. I had a comfort watch of Toy Story the other day after a late night teaching, which was just really lovely. You can't go wrong. And I want to see Past Lives, but I haven't seen it yet. That's the next one on my list to go see in the cinema. I'm excited about the sound of that. I did go to see Expendables 4 because there was my partner had a small scene in it. We went to go see if he had made it into the film or not. And that was quite an experience.
So I did see this on your Instagram and I forgot to ask you about it. That sounds amazing. The fact that you went to see it. Did he make it?
He's in it with Jason Statham. It's great. But I did not enjoy the film. Other than that, I was just like, how is it that there's, so much death and destruction and so many bombs and all of this, and yet there's also no stakes? Like, I just don't understand.
Right.
It was one of those, but it was, it was quite funny. So we sat and enjoyed giggling through that together. Yeah.
It's going to make so much money, so why not make an Expendables 5 and 6 and 7? You know what I mean? So
keep it going, guys. Yeah.
That's great though. What was the reaction when you found out that your partner was like? So were you sitting watching it going, I don't know if I'm going to be in this, by the way, and then he popped up, you were like, yeah.
We went to a little held our own premiere at Cineworld.
Okay.
And just went along on the day that it was released, and we were like, "Is he gonna be in it?" And then the second that the shot started, he was like, "It's the scene. I'm in," and we were like, "Way!" Everyone around us was like, "Oh, who are these really enthusiastic Expendables fans?"
Yeah, they'll be like, "Oh, well, they must be in the film. Are you in this film?" And then he gets to
Yeah,
go, "I am," for how
yeah, exactly.
12
In
seconds
fact,
of it is.
that's me. Yeah, so we stayed behind to watch for the name and the credits up. It was really exciting. It was a
That's
buzz.
great. That's great. I'd love to get him on the podcast too, by the way.
Oh, he would love this. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely go for that.
let's do
Yeah.
it. All right, okay, I'll stop talking about the podcast. But that's great. You saw Expendables 4. I saw a film called Dumb Money
Mm.
at the cinema, and it had Paul Dano, who's also in Little Miss Sunshine. He was
Oh,
the lead character. Let me just, it's been a while since I watched that, so it was about a couple weeks ago. It's Paul Dano, Pete Davidson,
mhm,
Vincent D'Onofrio, the guy that's like in everything.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
America Ferrera, and the one and only Seth Rogen and Sebastian Stan, my man.
Oh, big cast. Okay, cool.
Huge cast. I think so. The film was okay, right? It wasn't great. It was fine. It was a film. It was there. Um, but I think all these big names were in the film because this was filmed over lockdown, and they were just looking for something to do,
They
and
were
they were
like,
like,
"I'm bored. I'm free." Yeah.
there's a film, let's go and do it. Directed by Craig Gillespie, who has also done I, Tonya, and so like kind of Oscar-nominated films, Pam and Tommy. So he's got a good relationship with Sebastian Stan. So that's
Yeah.
probably how he made some contacts through that. I'm telling you, because I mean, a lot of the film is set kind of 2020, 2021,
Mm.
and a big thing is it was weird watching actually a film that is set during COVID time. It was the first time I'd seen it on that high of a scale.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking about it at the time, being like, "Oh, this is going to be part of history and stuff." But I didn't really think they were going to write it into art and culture and that sort of thing. And I don't
Yeah.
know if they just added it to the story, or if they just were forced to use COVID
Incorporate it. Yeah.
restrictions, and they had to have it in the story. So
Mm.
it was really interesting. It was an interesting film. It was about a guy who um goes on the stock market and invests in a video game shop. And because of the nature of the world, people start investing and following what he says because he's also a streamer and he gives
Right.
tips and stuff. So people believe him and also put stock in this game shop, and the stock rises and rises, and he's in line to make millions of dollars and stuff. Um, and it's a true story apparently that happened in 2021. So it was interesting. Um, Weirdly put together in some ways, strange song choices and stuff. I think they were trying to be hip and modern, but it was good. I would recommend checking it out.
It does really take you out of it, doesn't it? If you're watching a film and then the soundtrack is like a little bit try hard, maybe.
And
Uh,
I'm talking like we're talking like Megan
Fine.
Thee Stallion and
Yeah,
like the TikTok tunes, and you know what I mean. Like we're going to be relevant.
yeah. It's a fine line, isn't it? Because sometimes it's like delightful when you get it just right, and then
Yeah,
everyone's like, "Oh, that was a really cool moment." But if you get it just the wrong side of the line, it just feels a bit too
yeah,
forced. Yeah.
agreed.
Um. Yeah.
But yeah, that's in cinemas now, I think. And as you say, there's not much going about just now. So hopefully, we're kind of now seeing more things coming out, especially when it comes to Christmas sort of time.
Yeah.
Although there is obviously still strikes going on and stuff, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
What about in terms of you getting into performing? When did you first decide you wanted to be an actor? When did you want to start doing performances, plays, shows, TV, all that good stuff? When did it start?
Oh, well, okay. Great question. I actually think I can trace all of this madness now back to when I was in year six. So that would make me 10, maybe. Yeah, 10.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, we did Christmas panto of Hansel and Gretel, and everyone at the school, it's like by the time you made it to year six, you like maybe got the good parts,
Okay.
because like all the wee ones had to play other, they'd be like the trees and the forest and stuff like that, but then you were like up for the big hitter parts when you were in your final year at primary school.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed. I was like, I must be Gretel. I so badly want to do it. Incredibly sort of performative, maybe overly imaginative kid at home, but I was like, this is my moment. And I didn't get Gretel, and it was really sad. Only because I look back at myself at that time, and I was like, I was an incredibly late bloomer, right? I had the big hair, incredibly gappy teeth, just like a sort of awkward, weird little kid. Um, and of course this like very she had like little copper curls, perfect teeth, this like beautiful child got cast as Gretel, and I remember being like, oh, that feels like a really hard life lesson. Like I remember really being like, what does that mean? Like, how am I not the same as? Oh no, I'm not. Okay. Um, and then I got cast as the witch. Um,
Oh,
and then it turned out that the version we were doing was from the perspective of the witch. And I was
oh,
the main character. So it was like a 180 from my kind of like, oh no. And I was painted completely green, and they backcombed my hair even more. I was covered in warts, and I had the best time ever. And I really, really went for it. And I remember realizing that I took to it. Like I just had so much fun. And it was just before the point when I started to become really self-conscious as well. So it was like I had loads of fun, and then the fear hit me for the rest of my teens. But like that experience definitely set me off wanting to do that. And I got involved in drama at my secondary school early. Had a really great teacher. There's always one really great teacher, right? That has
what a
set you.
difference! What a difference for a subject like drama or music or something like that. You just need that relationship, I think.
Yeah, and she saw early that I was really keen, and I think realized that it was already really helping my confidence, and actually because of all the dental stuff, side note, but I I grew up with a speech impediment,
Hmm.
so in terms of like doing speech and drama was like really helpful, and be like performing throughout, working with that, and like my sort of face shape changing or my mouth shape changing, all the stuff like that, but like still wanting to perform. It was just, I don't know, it was just something from that point on. It was something I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm pleased I stuck with it. Yeah.
That's good, yeah. I also did a version of Hansel and Gretel in high school. It was high
Oh,
school, and that was like S4 or something. But we
uh,
had to write it ourselves,
oh,
but
that's tough.
like use a stimulus from or find a famous fairy tale or play or something to kind of write a version of it. So we just did Hansel and Gretel. But I think I played like Hansel's friend that I just wrote in. I was like
That's
Hansel's
not
pal Dave or something.
Hansel and Dave, the famous the famous sequel.
Gretel gets with Dave. It's a big 180.
I love it. Dave's actually the one that finds them when they're in the oven at the witches and is traumatized for life. So dark, that story. We obviously did not do
No.
that version, but yeah. So yeah, there we
That's
go.
good. Hansel and Gretel from the perspective of Dave and the witch.
And
Maybe
actually,
Dave and the witch would have been good
called
friends.
Doris. The witch was called Doris, so it could be Doris and Dave, which has got a ring it to it itself, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that. I was around S4 sort of time. When I kind of made a decision, I was like, I'm going to go in and I enjoy this. I'm going to go in and try and continue on with the performing. So maybe it's Hansel and Gretel. Maybe every child should do Hansel and Gretel at some point in their career. And this is the make or break decision. Did you enjoy it or did you not, or did you just want to play the witch?
I
So
love it. Get those grim tales in early. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So yeah, so that's great. What about when you came to the RCS? Did you studied there, right, for a bit at RCS?
Yeah, so that's how I ended up here actually, is I
Yeah,
moved up to do the MA in classical and contemporary text.
very
Um,
fancy. Yeah, it's very nice.
very nice, classical and contemporary, at the RCS. And then I ended up staying. I had some work lined up after RCS up here for the following year. So I stayed and was like, oh, okay. And then stayed for another year after that, and there was less work, but I was like, okay, there's some developments, there's stuff coming through. And then the year after that I was writing a show with my theatre company, so I was staying to do that, and that was all kicking off. It's really exciting. And then like the next 2 years were COVID, and now it's been another couple of years, and now I just live here, and my mum will truly never forgive me, but here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you met me and you met your partner. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. And now here we are. And now I run a business here. So really, the nails in the coffin. Yeah.
she ain't leaving.
I ain't
Um, so that's good. So I don't know if we can talk about this. Can we talk about the film that you did that you were then no longer in?
yes.
So can we
So
talk about that?
yeah, definitely. It's
Please tell me
hilarious.
the story.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, I'm
Sorry if
gonna.
this. Also, sorry if I brought up bad memories here. I really didn't mean
Oh
to.
no,
It's just a
it
funny
was a
story.
very long time ago. Um. Right. Well, it makes you a bit nervous. So I'm not gonna like go into too much detail. But basically, while I was at RCS, I had an audition for Outlaw King for like this Netflix film, and when you're like, I just cannot believe it. It was like a full out of body experience. When I found out that I got it, I was like, maybe I'm gonna be fine. Like maybe I'm actually gonna be all right, and this stuff's just gonna keep coming. And it was a really cool week on set. Like I learned a lot about how sets that scale work, and it was like it was just really interesting. The costumes were amazing. It was all like historically accurate. So it was like being in a sort of waking historical dream. But we were on set for like a week. And I was playing a queen. So I'd kind of convinced myself that I was like important historically enough that I was going to be safe. No such thing. Totally cut from the film. Wasn't in it. You can see me in the background at one point just being like, I'm also here. Yeah. Oh, that was a very loud notification. Sorry about that. But yeah, so yeah, I went along to the premiere and found out in real time sitting in the cinema that my like first speaking part in a film had disappeared. And I'd taken my friend Claire McAllister, who I run Hissy Fit Theatre with, and we were both, honestly, she had like most of her hand in her mouth trying to not laugh at just my expression. Yeah, it was funny just because the bits that were left of me were so brief. But the amazing thing was, because I was in the opening shot, because I was like sitting next to the king, who was obviously a very important character,
Right.
and I was billed third because I did in order of appearance. So for a little while, having like turned up to do this for a week, I only had a few lines, and then we had to do lots of ad-libbing. But because the character was French, and like I knew that's how the director wanted to work, I'd spent weeks. I'd been like listening to French language podcasts. I'd been like trying to come up with maybe appropriate phrases that she would say, like all these things, so that I could ad lib in French. And to my credit, I did manage. Like at one point, I got radio mic'd, and I like had to sort of like go with it and make stuff up in front of
French.
In front of like 180 actors in this massive thing. I was absolutely terrified, and I left being like, I've done it. I'm in that film. And I wasn't. But yeah.
I just imagine you trying to speak French in front of these people and like not knowing what you were saying, but also like just trying to like improv and say something important, to the point where you just feel so proud of yourself, and you go to watch it and it's just you were cut. I felt when you told me that, I felt so bad for you.
I had a great time at the premiere, it was fantastic. And actually ended up getting invited. Apparently there's this whole thing on IMDb. I ended up getting invited to like parties in LA for like a week after it was released, because people had no idea who I was, but because they'd looked, and because I was billing third, despite the fact I'm not in it at all. And there are so many like brunette, kind of pale women in that film. I think they just assumed I was one of the other ones that spoke loads. And I was like, at the time, I was working in Cineworld on Renfrew Street, like, on the films, like I was there like sweeping up after the film that I wasn't in, being like, I can't go to LA. What's happening? I can't do anything.
You should have went and just pretended you were someone else. That's so
I should have just gone and like fully pretended to be Florence Pugh and just been like, what are you going to do? It's me.
Or you could say, yeah, I was in the film. Did you not see me? I was billed third. Like, I was in it. I was next to the king.
Or just be like, I was actually the queen, and just not specify which queen. Like, leave it open.
Right, but then they'll probably do that thing that people do when they haven't watched something, or they don't know what you're talking about, but just don't want to just make the conversation awkward. Oh yeah, you were the queen. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, memorable. Yeah, no, you left a very distinct impression actually. Yeah.
Quite royal.
You wore a crown, right? Yeah. Just honestly.
You waved.
Yeah, I waved. It was it's actually one of my favorite stories now. It was very funny.
No, it's great. It's not great, but it's great.
Damp week as well, because the whole set got condemned from hurricanophilia. So there was a lot of like standing around in the rain in these medieval costumes. But I made some really great friends on that gig who are just
great.
Lovely. So.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I know obviously we're devastated that we weren't in the film, but I mean, such a great experience, such a great story, and also comes full circle the fact you went to Expendables 4, and you were like, I know how this feels. Like this is not going to be good, and then boom,
and then there he was.
He was in the film.
And you know what? Afterwards, we went home, and he was like, I need to watch on Netflix just to see you in the background of Outlaw King. I was like, you really don't need to do that. You blink, I'm not there.
So we can have this evening together. This experience.
Yeah. So good.
That's good.
Oh,
Okay, good. Well, sorry for reliving that, but that is
no, with pleasure. It's fun. It's one for the memoirs, Chris. It's all
yeah.
good.
You have to rate a book. I would read it. Um, all right. In terms of watching films, do you remember the first time you went to the cinema, or the first time you watched films, and when you know this is my first favorite movie of all time? Did you ever have that moment when you were wee?
Interesting. I remember a very early time of going to the cinema. It was not a favorite time, unfortunately. My gran used to live in Eastbourne, down by the
Okay.
coast. And I think I went to stay with her one time, and she took me to see A Bug's Life in the cinema at Eastbourne. And I was really excited. And then I remember being, and this tells you a lot about quite how oversensitive I was as a child. I remember crying and crying and crying at the bit in A Bug's Life where there's the little insect circus and the flea gets stuck and he like starts to burn under the magnifying glass. And I
Oh
was
yeah, I
like,
think I remember.
really, like it's meant to be funny. And I was like distraught that everyone was laughing at this poor suffering flea. And I just couldn't get over it for, it's a complete disaster. And then there's a bit in that they're in some huge leaf bird that's on fire, and I remember being really worried for I just overinvested standard. Um, so I think that's one of the earliest things I can remember seeing at the cinema. But one of my favorite things I've seen at the cinema. That's a good
Or even
question.
just, I mean, you could have watched it at home, like on VHS or DVD or something like that. But like an early memory you have of being like, oh, this is my favorite film when you were like 5.
Oh, okay, that early on. Let me think back.
Because I remember seeing films like that to that age and just being like, what on earth are we watching here? You know what I mean? Like it's just so totally mind blowing. And I knew the difference between like animation and real life stuff. Like I obviously watched Toy Story and all that good stuff. Um, but like I have such fond memories of like Stuart Little
Yes,
and you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like those sort of films. I was like, oh my god, that's a talking mouse.
I had a VHS of Fly Away Home, the one with all the geese.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, she ends up raising loads of geese and then she like has it she tries to like help them. Oh, it's all very strange, but I definitely watched that quite a lot.
What's it
Uh,
called?
Fly Away Home.
Let's do it. We got 1996.
Oh, and I've got a really good one. Okay, so obviously Disney's. I was sort of obsessed with the Little Mermaid for a little while before I was like, hold on, the prince in this is called Eric. I don't buy that. But yeah, so it was like Little Mermaid, and I loved Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Um, and then very early on came across Hook. So I've got two much older sisters who have excellent taste in film. So like a lot of that kind of trickled down to me a little earlier than in some cases it probably should have done.
Yeah.
But I remember being very obsessed with Hook. And like the idea of like a kid run commune with
Yeah.
all that amazing cool outfits, and like I think just even that they'd made like their armor and their toys and their weaponry themselves, there was a part of me that was like always trying to like strap stuff together in the garden to make something.
Yeah.
And I think it really like hacked into that bit of my like it just completely took me over. And I was scared. I was really, really scared at the beginning of that film, with the hook mark all the way up to the nursery, up the stairs.
Right.
But it was like that experience when you're like in kind of enjoying being scared. There's something about it when you're like, oh, I actually need to watch that again and again. There's something a bit like compelling, like compulsive about it. Yeah. So I'd say Hook was up there. It's bonkers.
I mean,
It's
it's absolutely crazy. And that and Labyrinth as well. I found that both are
yeah.
very similar, weird fantasy kind of films.
Similar vibes. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
match actually. Similar vibes. Yeah, but I think my favorite animation that I still find myself I mean, I don't think it's like one of the best ones per se, but The Emperor's New Groove, something about
Oh,
um just like Eartha Kitt's voice as Yzma, that just went. I honestly sometimes I still find myself gesticulating like I'm Yzma, I can't. I just the way that they were so frenetically animated, I just completely loved it. And me and my siblings quoted that like I mean we still do, yeah, for
yeah.
years. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Just when you were saying about wanting to be scared, I was speaking to Kelly Davy about it last week, and I was just like, I don't understand. I need you to explain to me the kind of like the thrill, like why you want to, because I don't want to get scared. You know, I'm like, I don't like the scary films because I know I'm going to get scared.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that as we're in October? You know, it's Halloween season. You've picked a very scary film for today's episode, anyway. Um, what is it about that kind of thrill of being scared? Do you like the horror films, or is it something
It's
silly like?
funny because I'm like such a wuss. Like probably that bit now of like a hook in the wall would still scare me, like as an adult. I'm an absolute wuss. But I think what I've gradually learned is like sort of stuff that is tense or psychologically tense, I can totally cope with.
Yeah.
Stuff actually maybe even stuff that's like supernatural or very imaginatively fictional. So like I quite enjoy exploring that feeling of like, oh, that's a bit unsettling in
Mm.
something like Hook. And that's like definitely carried into other films if it's sort of magical realism or stuff like that. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But when it is, I find it really hard to separate um when it comes to stuff like physical violence. So actually even the Expendables, where there was like loads of kind of everybody's just being slaughtered left, right, and center, and it's really casual. I can't like whatever part we're meant to dissociate in our brain, I can't do that because I'm like, even though this is a story, that's not funny because people have died like that, or people do die like that, and
Right.
I kind of can't be like it's just a film in those moments. So
Yeah.
films that are like gore, I just can't handle them. They do something to my body that I completely shut down. So
Yeah.
I'm utter wuss when it comes to that.
Listen,
Paranoid stuff a little bit better with now. I'm being gradually eased into it by my flatmate who loves stuff like that. He'll sort of tell me when there's a jump scare or stuff, and that
oh, that's
helps.
good.
So I'm getting a little bit better, but yeah, I just can't hack the gore.
That's an interesting take though about like because you know this obviously this is a film, but this has happened to people, you know, and you can relate to that. You know, the people watching the film will might get, you know, like disturbed by it because, you know, they've known someone that's maybe died like that or has heard of it like that that's happened in real life. You know, that's why it's kind of weird when all these films tend to be based on a true story. And you
Yeah.
go, well, how true are we talking here? Because this is horrific, you
Yeah.
know?
And actually, this is probably like really dark, but because I was quite into history as a kid,
Yeah.
um, and my older sisters obviously were watching stuff like beyond my age appropriate
Right.
bracket. I remember going through to the lounge at one point, being like, "Oh, I can't sleep," but basically wanted attention, and they were watching something about Elizabeth I, and there were people being burned at the stake. And I remember it being like complete, you know, I didn't sleep for it was like night after night. And because I already could understand at that stage that like although that was a film and they were
Yeah.
actors, I was like, that doesn't matter though, because they're actors who were playing real people who did die like that. And I can't stop imagining it.
Yeah.
So there's just like whatever distance that is. In some ways, I think that's a really like helpful thing, acting wise or writing wise. It's like a help, and in other ways, it's just like endlessly impossible to like watch anything.
Because
So
there's something in everything that's like that, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's this sort of hypersensitivity that I've had to kind of find ways around. So
In terms of like the scary films, though, I don't. It's not that I don't like the jump scares because that's just jump scares, right? They're over in a second or whatever, right? But it's obviously the anticipation, and that's the point, right? It's like the build up to the scare.
yeah,
But the scariest film I've ever seen, I always say, is The Shining, right? But it's just such a brilliant film,
I've
and
watched most of it with my hands. Yeah,
that's like another example of one where I finished watching the film and just thought it was amazing, but I've never watched it again because it freaked me out so much, you know?
yeah,
Whereas something like Jaws, I mentioned every episode that comes up, that's my favorite movie, right?
yeah. Is it?
Um, yeah. And there's like jump scares in that, and they still get me. Not in like a
Every
sort of
time.
like and I properly I'm losing the popcorn and I'm totally jumping, but like even it's I get disturbed sometimes still when you see the shark and the blood and all that, like even
It's
though I've
yeah,
seen it a million times. Yeah.
still fresh blood in the water for
Yeah.
you.
That's a
I,
film on Disney Plus I want to watch actually. That's Sebastian Stan as well. Fresh. I think he's plays a cannibal. That looks interesting.
oh yes, yeah. You see, okay, so I watched one the other week called Lake Mungo, which was so great. I'd really recommend that for people who are like scared but not. Yeah, there's no gore. It is, you know,
Okay.
it's It is about like a tragic incident that happens to a young woman, like very early on, but it's kind of like you don't really have any details about what's happened to her. It's just like in the aftermath of her death,
Yeah.
basically. And a lot of it's filmed in a like documentary style. So they're all actors, but it's like their interviews. And the acting style for that is just it's so impressive. And it's really unsettling, but only in that every time you think you've understood what's going on, it shifts again. So it like keeps you guessing for the whole film. So it feels a bit more like sort of investigative than
Yeah.
horror. It's yeah, I was that's one that I was like, oh, I enjoyed that. I'd recommend that.
When people ask me who in my life is like the most positive and happy people that I know, I always mention Becca Dunn. And
Oh,
we are in October, so I feel like I have to like mention some form of like scary films and stuff. But we'll shift over to a more happier note. Films we're chatting about to maybe your favorite film of all time. Is that why you selected Little Miss Sunshine for today's episode?
yeah, it absolutely is. Um, Probably since I was about 15, that has been my answer the whole way through. It's Little Miss Sunshine.
I
Yeah.
think I asked you like ages ago when we first talked about doing this. I was like, "What would be your favorite film?" And you kind of you had it ready.
Yeah.
Um, when was the first time you saw the film? Was it obviously you were 15? Was it when the film came out? Did you see it in the cinema, or was it one that you ended up being shown later on?
Yeah, it's shown later on. It was a DVD with the Friends kind of situation, which was
Yeah.
just I don't know, I don't think any of us had seen it actually. Um, dare I say, I think it was actually a blockbuster.
Oh,
Show my age here, but I think it was actually a blockbuster DVD pickup. Um,
I love that.
and I don't know, everything about it just hit at completely the right time for where I was at, sort of in my like cynical teenage state, but
Yeah.
also in being like sort of disillusioned, but also very ironic and feeling like everything was very dysfunctional and difficult and no one understood me. And the soundtrack is just incredible.
There's a good soundtrack. Yeah.
Uh, and even now, actually, I watched it again just the other month, and I think it just doesn't miss a beat. Like it holds up so well. There's not a single moment wasted in that film, and it still makes me completely howl with laughter. And also, there are moments in it so tender that I want to cry. Like it does just take you through all of it.
Just looking at the playlist here on Spotify, the official Little Miss Sunshine soundtrack, so many like tunes that you wouldn't expect to be in there.
So it
Um,
introduced me to Sufjan Stevens, who's still one of my favorite artists. But he did Chicago for that,
right.
and well, that was they put Chicago in it. He didn't do it for that, but even now, when I hear that song, it kind of for me, it's now somehow about teenage me or like teenage Becca, and it's related to Little Miss Sunshine and watching that film. And then there's something about like the image of them running after that yellow camper van
Right.
is like attached to the song. But also because the song is about like change and letting go and grief, but it sounds really cheery. It's just so exactly the feeling of that film in the song that yeah. Uh,
Yeah. It's like the iconic kind of DVD cover, I guess, just because it's bright yellow.
yeah.
um, and that's the scene that I knew from it. I'd never seen the film before. This is a first time watch for me.
Ooh.
And that's the whole point of the podcast, right? It's to connect with my friends and new people and stuff like that, but also to kind of force myself to watch some things that I've never seen before. And I'm not saying I'm the type of guy, because I'm definitely not. I'm not the type of guy that would be like, I'm not watching that film because it's called Little Miss Sunshine and I'm a boy, and I'm not like that at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would happily watch anything, but just maybe that is the reason. I just hadn't seen it before. It was never one that popped up, and I was like, I really want to watch Little Miss Sunshine. So I was
Yeah.
delighted you picked it. So I got to watch it, and I love Steve Carell, one of my
Oh,
favorite actors.
so great.
Um, and so the fact that he was in that, like, and I knew he was in it, and I knew he was going to be funny, even though it's not like a typical Steve Carell character. He's actually going through some really serious stuff.
Yeah.
It deals with a lot of serious kind of issues that the Steve Carell style of acting doesn't really deal with. I know him as Michael Scott, and the guy from Anchorman and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Yeah.
um, so it was so nice to see him. And he's still funny. He's still Steve Carell. You're still laughing away. He's so charming and stuff like that. But it's nice to see him in that kind of real, kind of subtle, serious role.
I think the whole thing is just like from all of them such a masterclass, but also like with Steve Carell in that. I'd only ever seen him do the like really big comedy characters, and it was that thing of being like, oh, actually, the skill in that is that you can dial it the whole way down and give
Right.
these like, hyper real, naturalistic, actually like very vulnerable uh performances, because it's like clown, it's like the tragedy and comedy, so it's so close together, and I love getting to watch him play with that, because I mean he's just brilliant in it. And then there are moments when he's like when he'll just tell people to shut up or whatever,
Yeah.
where it's like laugh out loud funny, but you still don't feel like you're watching Steve Carell doing a Steve Carell character. Like he very much is totally
Yeah.
taking over as Frank in that. Yeah.
Yeah, you do relate to him, you know. I feel like you actually relate to all the characters in a way. Like I have nothing in common with the daughter, with Olive, who's going to go
Yeah.
and be in the beauty pageant. But it's all about like having a dream, following your dream, and having a good support system around you,
Yeah.
which I've always been lucky to have had and stuff. And and I feel like my parents would have gone above and beyond to help me. You know what I mean? Like finding a way to relate in any way possible is
Yeah.
something that I feel like I can do quite well, and that I was able to do in this film. And then, of course, I was going to say was like the running scene when they're trying to catch the jump in the big van
Jump
thing.
back in. Yeah.
I mean, how much fun that would be to film, how difficult that would be to do. Is
Yeah.
that the most like iconic scene from the film, do you think?
Oh, there's so many, but like definitely, I think there's a reason that one's on the cover, because I
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I mean, I'm gonna get all ridiculous about this now, but I feel like it is. For anyone that hasn't seen it, because the camper van they're in on this really long road trip to go to this completely sort of damned beauty pageant that none of them want to go to, and turns out to be like a sort of hellscape of kid beauty pageant in America when they get
Yeah.
there. The van like gradually breaks down. So at one point the dad honks the horn and the horn just doesn't stop. So for the rest of the
That's right.
like this weird kind of like weebling little horn going on in the background, and everyone's being driven mad, and then the door won't come back on properly, and then the clutch goes, so they have to always park on a hill and like and push it to get it, so they're all pushing the car to get it going every single time. So it is this thing, I feel like, because they're such a dysfunctional family and they're so separate and isolated at the beginning, but it's like in them trying to push and like gather behind the youngest one, Olive, it's like the car becomes like this metaphor for them trying to like get something to move beyond them and like beyond their circuit, so they're all like they push it into motion, and then they all have to chase after it to
Yeah,
jump.
love it.
A few times they almost don't make it in, but somehow it's like it's funny, but it also feels like the whole scene, the whole film in an image. um like that feeling of trying to let something go and catch up with it at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. Total family film, you know what I mean? Like coming together, teamwork, all that good stuff. Like it's such a nice metaphor. They're pushing this van,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
camper van, which I could never fit in, by the way. Imagine me trying to sit in there and I'd bang my head.
You'd be like, oh, your head would be like at an angle, a right angle the whole time.
I feel like I'd be like Paul Dano's character, Dwayne, just sitting there not saying a word. And so
Oh,
that was really interesting because
iconic.
um he's playing a character that hasn't spoken in so long. I can't remember why he's
Yeah.
not speaking. Is he trying to break a record or something?
So
Um,
he's sworn a vow of silence, um, until he becomes a jet pilot. He wants to fly jets, and he's obsessed with Nietzsche, and has decided in his studying of Nietzsche that until he's accomplished this goal, he's not going to speak. So he's almost taken this like monastic vow. And I also think because like everybody else in his family talks so much and so
right.
insistent, he's just been like, he's just stepped out completely. Yeah.
Like I don't know how you are with like big groups, right? But I feel like that would be quite overwhelming for me if we were just quickly, let's all get packed in here and we're going to be really stressed out and we're going to go on this long road trip and stuff and nothing's going to go right and the
Yeah.
car's going to break down and we're all going to be arguing. Like I think I would be like, I'm just going to sit here and not say anything for like 5 hours.
Just awful, especially when there's so many deep-rooted family tensions in such a small space. So it's like actually they all kind of really truly in that moment hate at least one other member of the family in the do you know, like everybody is like constantly sniping at each other. So you would just be like, I'm just gonna numb out. Like there's a bit where he's looking out the back window and they're going under this big multi-junction concrete bypass. Is that what they're called? But
Yeah,
like, like
underpass. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they're going under that, and he's just like watching it over the sky. And I remember it is, again, it's that like teenage state of mind when you're like, I just can't absorb any more of this. So you kind of like look out the car window like you're in a film, like he does,
Yeah,
and it's like zone out. And I remember, yeah, I remember that image really clearly from him.
yeah. Not to spoil anything, I'm just going to assume people who have clicked on this episode have seen the film.
Yeah,
But the moment where he realizes that he can't be a jet pilot and he runs, he's like, I don't know what to do. Like he's going to stay in the van and he's really upset and he's going to start crying and shouting and screaming.
in the van. Yeah,
He starts punching. He tries to like to hold it in, and that scene was just amazing. He just runs out into the distance, into the nature, and just
yeah,
starts like absolutely breaking down.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, that's obviously going to happen if it's coming from a character that's not spoke for an hour and a half. But
yeah.
I just didn't expect it to be like, whoa, that was what an amazing scream.
Explosion. And
Yeah.
I mean, it is very funny. Can we swear on this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, great. It's very funny that he's like been silent for the whole film, and a
Right.
lot of people have said really inappropriate things around him, like in front of this kid who's got headphones on and stuff. And then in his moment, the first thing he says in the film is like the longest bellowed "fuck" you've ever heard as he like explodes out of this van, and it is like an explosion. And there's something so like it's such a like undignified moment because Paul Dano like obviously really commits to it. It's like all like
Yeah.
cracked, his voice is really high because he hasn't spoken for ages. Like it's all snotty and he's like in the dirt, just in like proper grief at his dream just disappearing. That was like the
Yeah.
only thing that was keeping him sane. It's like so heartbreaking, but also there's again that this is what this film does so well. It's like really heartbreaking and like very real, that loss, but it is also kind of funny. Like he's just sitting there in this massive valley and his family are like in the background being like, we've got to get back in the car or we're going to be late, like what do we do?
So like, what are we going to do? He's not moving. Do we come back for him?
Yeah,
And I loved like it's Olive, right? It's his little sister that
yeah,
goes down and just is like, come on, let's go then. And he's like, okay, yeah, you're right. And it's like that brother sister kind of relationship that only
yeah,
I think a sibling thing would do. You know, like you would do it for your sibling.
exactly that. They're all trying to save her, and a lot of the time they're trying to save her in like such unhealthy toxic ways, like the
Yeah,
dad. They're like when they're walking back up the slope from where he's had his big explosion, there's a bit that always really breaks my heart, which is he just lifts her up like under the armpits for the last bit of the slope because it's too big for her. And
yeah.
they've barely said anything. She's just given him a hug and he's been like, okay, well, I mean, I can't not do
Let's
this for
go.
you, like, because I love you, so we've got to go.
Yeah,
And it's so tender. Yeah.
great scene when again, spoiler if you've not seen it, but Alan Arkin's character passes away. The granddad of the family, and he's in the hospital, and it's happened, and they have to go to this beauty pageant. So it's like, well, we need to stay here, like granddad's dead, or whatever.
Mhm.
And they're like, no, we're going to make the pageant, like we're all going to go, and they just take his dead body and throw it out the window. Like, and it's not that I wasn't expecting it because it's not as if I was like, this is a very family film and it's
No,
nothing
it's
funny like
all
that's going to happen. But I love the fact, and also it wasn't like a kind of slapsticky kind of like, oh, we've got this body flying out the window. It was really logical. Like
yeah.
they filmed it in a way like if this was actually happening, how difficult it would be to maneuver this body. And he's old and he's kind of a heavier guy, and like,
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious, and even to the point where does he speak to the cops? Because the thing with
Yeah,
Brian
yeah,
Brian
they get
Cranston
pulled
pulls him over.
over.
And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, he's in the, yeah, my granddad or my father's in the boot of the car and he thinks it's a joke. That's probably one of my favourite scenes when they're trying to get him out the window.
Oh my gosh. It's such a like slow transition from the shock and like grief that they've lost him. And then them being in that little room and being like, he'd want us to go. And then
Yeah.
them deciding they're like, right, okay, we're gonna do this. And then it's just this is horrible. This is terrific. Them running through the car park holding the
With
sheet up.
him. And then Steve Carell running, like, that just makes it funny too, you know?
I mean,
Uh,
the first time I watched it, I remember I think I was sitting there just like open mouthed at that bit, being like, "What is happening? This is one of the best films I've ever seen." Like, you just don't see it coming, and it's so brave, but you're also like, "This is so stupid! Like, what on earth are you doing?" Yeah,
yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, like, I don't know if the idea of the kind of American beauty pageant thing
Yeah.
isn't really a thing over here. Like, it obviously is a thing, but it's not as big. I don't think. Maybe that's me being naive, but I certainly haven't
It
seen
is.
many beauty pageants around Glasgow anyway. Um, Especially for really young girls, right? So you'd imagine this is a thing that maybe would happen in high school or when you're older and stuff. But it is fascinating to me that these things happen from when a child is whatever age Olive is in the film, 8,
Yeah.
um, and it's
It's so
crazy.
disturbing. Yeah, so disturbing.
And I mean, I'm not even obviously I just said that I've never seen one in Glasgow, but I kid you not, like a day or two after I watched this film, I
Yeah.
was in the car going to work, I guess, or the train station or whatever. And we were at kind of Renfrew Street, Sunnyworld, actually, at the lights there, because the lights take forever. And we're sitting there, and the Royal Concert Hall, Glasgow Concert Hall, is on my left. And there was a child beauty pageant happening in Glasgow on that day. Like a day or two after I watched this film. I couldn't believe
What
it.
are the odds? You must have been like chills to the bone.
But the
I
way
am,
I noticed it, because obviously it was fresh in my head because I watched the film. But there's just these, like, I swear they could have been older than
yeah,
7, walking around, and they had the hair like
yeah.
all done up and the makeup like so plastered on, and it's obviously a big deal and it's great, and these are memories that they're going to look back on. But it's so weird to me that that's the thing that you do from that young of an age.
Yeah, in terms of like dance shows or like talent
Yeah,
performance, them all doing public speaking or like having a skill. I think all of that is so great, but particularly in the era of the ones that they're looking at in Little Miss Sunshine, like because I don't know what they're like now. And I hope that they've got a lot better. But I think like the thing is, it's all really weirdly sexualized. Like they're making these kids look like teenagers and they're making them do very inappropriate things, and the
right.
response is very inappropriate. And it's like her family gradually realizing this, and then I'd say for me, like the probably I mean, there's so many iconic scenes, like the chasing after the car, the bit where they forget her and they have to go back, um, and Paul Dano's like explosion out of the van when he speaks. But I think the like apex of all of it is when she finally does her performance, and I mean, if you haven't seen it, like don't listen to us talk about it because you want to be surprised, but it is like you have no idea what her routine has been for the whole film.
Because they're working on it, with
Yeah.
with Alan Arkin's character. Yeah,
And that until you get to the end and you've seen all these other kids do their routines or like bits of their routines, and you're starting to be like, this is actually really quite dark, like this is unsettling, and I don't want this kid who's
yeah,
just been through all of this to do this, and her family are being like, we don't want her to do this doesn't seem right, but also like what if people laugh at her, but if we pull her from it then she'll get a different lesson that she can't be like these other kids, or that
yeah,
like her body, it's like she has some stuff about body image that comes up in the film, like kind of put on her by adults, and they're like, well, we can't take her out of it because she'll now think that that is because of that and that there's something wrong with her, so like how do we now support her to go through it, and have a good experience. And it is just totally epic, and the
it is
grand
epic.
the biggest has just it's just the biggest screw you possible to the whole thing, and it's golden, it's so joy filled.
The
Yeah,
character, like the person who's like running the pageant, like the woman who's doing it, is so it's so hateable of a character, and she's hardly in it. The actress does a great job actually of making you hate
yeah,
her in such
what
a
a fun
short
part.
period of time.
Yeah, and the guy, the like compere who's running it, and
Yeah,
he's all like, now this next little lady, that
he was
guy,
good.
so creepy. Like
Yeah,
he's I think he sings a song. I can't remember what it is, but he like sings a solo like at all these children covered in sequins standing there like little dolls. And it's just so like there's like a cut to Greg Kinnear's face being like, what is
yeah.
happening with this guy? Like this is his job. Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Greg Kinnear was an amazing character in this film. However, the MVP of the film is Toni Collette, because my
Yes.
God, she
Oh
is the
my gosh.
anchor and holds the family together. She's so good.
Yeah, and you can feel the burden of it so well. Like she holds them together, but the strain is so evident. Um, there's a bit right at the beginning actually where she really angrily puts down a packet of chalk ice on the table, and she's like, "And here's dessert." After they've all had this like horrific family argument, and then she tries to eat one really fast, really angrily, and obviously it's incredibly cold.
Yeah,
It's just Colette being like, "I can't have this." But like, yeah, she's so amazing in it. Yeah.
I love a chalk ice.
Been a while.
Been a while, absolutely. Not now though. It's cold now. You feel it today. Jesus.
Oh, I know, I know. We've
Uh,
just our boiler's only just got fixed, which is why I'm sitting here like holding on to this
Very
really.
nice.
Yeah,
Very
like,
nice.
yeah.
All right, so this is the Good Bit podcast. You've already mentioned a few of your favourite scenes. You have to now pick one best bit of
Oh,
the film, or your
oh,
favourite bit of the Little Miss Sunshine.
oh, actually, yeah. Okay, I've got one. So the ending is a close second because it is just like brilliantly done. But there's one scene which is, if you haven't seen the film, is probably the clip that you've seen because it does the rounds so much. But it's Olive in this like horrible motel with her granddad just the night before he passes away. And they've just been practicing their routine. It's the night before the pageant. She's really nervous. And she sort of is having doubts and she goes like, "Granddad, am I pretty?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? Of course you're pretty." And she's like, she just doesn't believe him. And he ends up being like, "No, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I'm madly in love with you. And it's not because of your personality, it's because of your looks." And it's very funny. And then she begins to be like, "Granddad, am I, what is it?" She goes, "I don't want to be a loser." Um, because dad hates losers.
Right.
This is true. Greg Kinnear's character is like a 12 steps to success guy, and he's put a lot of pressure on her. And then Alan Arkin has this amazing thing when he's like, "You know what a loser really is? Is it somebody who's so afraid of failing that they don't even try, and you're trying, right? So then you're not a loser." And honestly, there's just something about the tenderness between them in that scene. And Abigail Breslin does such a great job. And it's like, they've come all this way, and then the fragility of her just being like, "I don't know, what if I fail, and then because my
Yeah.
family's a mess everybody leaves me." It's beautiful, really really beautiful, that scene. I think of that like a lot. Yeah.
Good shout. That is, I totally forgot about that scene. That was beautiful when I was watching it. Beautiful writing, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just looking on IMDb at so it was nominated for 4 Oscars, won 2 of them, won Best Original Screenplay, and it won Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Alan Arkin. But it also was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
So what year was this? 2006. I want to see what won in 2006.
Yeah, what beat it? Yeah, well, that makes sense because it just, like as I was saying, it just doesn't miss a beat. Like the screen, it's so tight, the whole thing.
Okay, so it wasn't 2006. The film came out in 2006, so it would be 2007. How do you do that? Oh yeah, so 79th Oscars. So it was won by The Departed, by Martin Scorsese. Great film.
Seen it, isn't that bad?
No, I don't know. I might have preferred Little Miss Sunshine, but we've got the other films up for it that year. Babel, not sure. Letters from Iwo Jima, Little Miss Sunshine, and The Queen. Were all films. Seems like an uneventful year, if I'm honest. And best, let's see what the other one, best supporting actor. So Alan Arkin won. Eddie Murphy for Dreamgirls was up. Mark Wahlberg was for The Departed, was on that one. Yeah, here's what I was looking for. Little Miss Sunshine, best original screenplay. It beat Babel, Letters from Iwo Jima, I don't know what that is. Pan's Labyrinth and The Queen as well. Don't know these films.
Pan's Labyrinth's pretty big hitter. Have you ever
Is that
seen
big?
that?
No, I don't actually know what it is. It's Del Toro, isn't it?
That's, yeah, so that's a lot of magical realism. It's also, actually, funnily enough, I mean, they couldn't be more different style wise, but it's not a dissimilar story in that it's sort of like around the hugely dysfunctional goings on around
Okay.
a young girl. And so one of them moves into magical realism, which is Pan's Labyrinth, and
I'll tell you this though.
comes out in Little Miss Sunshine. Yeah.
Uh, for animated films this year, Monster House, Cars, and Happy Feet all in the one go.
Oh,
That's a good list.
whoa, big year. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there we go. Little Miss Sunshine ticked off the list on the good bit. I love the film. And you know what? It's one of those films where you watch it for the first time and you go, yeah, that was great and stuff. But when you do get talking about it, it makes you want to kind of watch it again and pick up some new things. I always enjoy the films more second time round, third time round, because you know what you're looking for now, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm really pleased you enjoyed it. That's great. Must be awkward if you come in here and you're like, "I personally hated it," but talk to me about your film.
I've I've been lucky, right? I have been lucky where folk have picked great films. There's been a couple of times where I've not like loved it, and I've been like, but if also for the sake of the episode, I know I need to be somewhat enthusiastic about it and have some stuff to say, because it's going to make it really awkward if I'm having like to counteract what the person's saying, unless it's going to make it an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
But the one that I kind of did bring up was Moulin Rouge, with Johnny McKnight. I think with Johnny McKnight, who just loves Moulin Rouge,
I love
and
Moulin Rouge. It's good for you.
like I like it and stuff, but just the film just wasn't really for me. I can imagine I'd like the show better because I like the spectacle, you know. I don't know if it was just the film. I don't know what it was. It's just a hit for me.
Yeah.
But Johnny McKnight just loved it. I was so enthusiastic about it. It was telling me bits that, oh, what did you think of this bit? And I was like, oh yeah.
You're like, yeah, great. It was sort of fine, that bit.
Ewan McGregor.
I do love a Moulin Rouge. That's the soundtrack. That is it. I would listen to that soundtrack.
Come what may. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Good tunes. But anyway, no, I did enjoy it. There's not been any films that I've not liked necessarily. Because I'm quite open with that. I feel like I'm quite positive for that stuff, but I don't know. There will be some out there.
You're an open-minded, positive guy. That's good. Yeah.
Like I'm not really into like Halloween and stuff like that. But then like last Halloween, actually, we had Alison Orr pick like Practical Magic, which is a film about two witches, and I'd never seen it before, never heard of it, and I was going, this isn't really for me. But
do you know they're going to do a sequel to that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, they're doing sequels for everything. Oh my God, make a new film, you know?
And they're going to do a remake of Death Becomes Her as well, which is another absolute classic. And I'm a bit like, oh, leave it be. But I think because the CGI will have got so much better, like special effects will be like, it'll be completely different now. Which I imagine might make it a bit more scary actually, because how sort of funny some of it was kind of the effect in the old. So we'll have to see. But yeah.
Well, Becca, it's been lovely catching up with you. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. And we're maybe thinking of doing a wee bit of a rebrand soon. So maybe next time we speak, if it's with microphones in front of our faces, it'll be more kind of general, just to kind of catch up again in maybe a few months' time. But hopefully I'll see you before then anyway in person.
Definitely. So I'm sorry it took you so long to get me on, but it was really nice to sit and chat a little more sunshine with you. It's lovely.
Totally. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everybody for listening and for watching the Good Bit podcast this week. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and we'll catch you all down the road.
Citizens